The cemetery was quiet, save for the rustling of autumn leaves beneath his feet. Daniel had been visiting his son's grave every Sunday since the accident, each time bringing fresh flowers and the same unbearable grief. The sky above was a dull gray, the sun struggling to break through the thick clouds. He knelt before the headstone, tracing the engraved letters with trembling fingers. Ethan James Carter, beloved son, 2012 to 2023. Daniel swallowed the lump in his throat and placed the flowers on the grave. He closed his eyes, allowing memories to consume him, the laughter, the warmth, the irreplaceable presence of his little boy. When he opened them again, he noticed something that made his breath hitch. A girl, no older than 12, stood a few feet away, staring at Ethan's grave. She wore a pale blue dress, her long dark hair cascading over her shoulders. Her expression was unreadable, her presence unsettling. "Who are you?" Daniel asked, his voice quieter than he intended. The girl looked up at him with piercing green eyes. "I knew Ethan." Daniel frowned. "That's not possible. He never mentioned you." She took a step forward, her bare feet making no sound against the damp earth.
"He wouldn't have."
"We met in a place where he couldn't talk about me." A chill ran down Daniel's spine. "What do you mean?" The girl glanced at the grave, her fingers tightening around the small pendant hanging from her neck. "I need to tell you something, but not here." Daniel hesitated. The logical part of his mind screamed at him to walk away, but something about the girl's demeanor, her sadness, her urgency, kept him rooted to the spot. He finally nodded. "Okay. Where?" She gestured toward the far end of the cemetery, where an old and used chapel stood. It had been abandoned for years, its wooden structure weathered by time. Daniel followed her, his pulse quickening with each step. As they approached the entrance, the air grew colder, thick with an unspoken heaviness. Inside, the dim light cast long shadows on the wooden pews. The girl moved to the center of the room and turned to face him. "Ethan wasn't supposed to die," she said softly. Daniel's breath caught. "What do you mean?" She hesitated before whispering. "He was taken." Daniel's world tilted. "Taken?"
"No."
"It was an accident. A car." She shook her head. "That's what they wanted you to believe." The temperature in the room seemed to drop another 10 degrees. Daniel clenched his fists, his grief morphing into something else, something dark and desperate.
"Who are you?"
The girl stepped closer, her green eyes now glistening with unshed tears. "My name is Lila, and I died too." A cold dread settled over Daniel as her words sank in. He took a step back, his body rigid with disbelief. "That's not possible." Lila slowly reached into the pocket of her dress and pulled out a photograph. She handed it to him with trembling fingers. Daniel's heart nearly stopped as he stared at it. It was a picture of Ethan, standing beside Lila. They were both smiling, yet something about the background sent an icy shiver down his spine. It was a place he didn't recognize, a dark forest, shrouded in mist. His mind whirled. How could this be? Who had taken this picture? And why had he never seen it before? "I need your help," Lila said, her voice barely above a whisper. "To find out what really happened." Daniel swallowed hard, his pulse hammering against his ribs. "What if I don't want to know?" Lila's gaze didn't waver. "You do. Because if we don't stop them, more children will disappear." A gust of wind howled through the broken chapel windows, making the wooden beams creak ominously. Daniel looked at the girl before him, this strange, impossible girl, and knew that his world had just changed forever. And there was no turning back. Daniel's grip on the photograph tightened. His mind raced with questions, each more unsettling than the last. He forced himself to look back at Lila, who stood motionless, waiting for him to accept the impossible. "Who took them?" Daniel's voice was hoarse, the weight of his grief colliding with newfound dread. Lila hesitated, her fingers brushing against her pendant. "They don't have a name, but they watch. They wait. And when the time is right, they take." Daniel shuddered. The logical part of his brain urged him to dismiss her words, but deep down, something told him she wasn't lying. He thought back to Ethan's final days, Had there been signs he'd missed? Unexplained fear? Nightmares? A sense of being followed? "What do we do?" he asked, barely recognizing his own voice. Lila turned toward the chapel door. "We follow the path." Daniel hesitated. "What path?" She raised a pale hand and pointed beyond the graveyard's iron fence. Daniel followed her gaze and felt his stomach drop. A narrow, winding trail cut through the trees, shrouded in an unnatural mist. He'd never noticed it before, though he'd been visiting Ethan's grave for months. "They took Ethan through there," Lila whispered. "And if we want to find the truth, we have to go in." A frigid wind swept through the graveyard, rustling the trees. Daniel's instincts screamed at him to turn back, but the thought of Ethan, lost, scared, stolen, compelled him forward. As they stepped beyond the cemetery's boundary, the world seemed to shift. The air thickened, the sounds of distant traffic and rustling leaves faded into an eerie silence. The deeper they ventured, the more the mist curled around them, swallowing the path behind them like a closing door. Lila moved with eerie certainty, never looking back. Daniel followed, his breath shallow, his pulse erratic. Then he saw them, shadows lurking between the trees, shifting in the mist, their forms indistinct but undeniably watching. Daniel's blood ran cold. "Lila, we're not alone." She didn't stop walking. "We never were." A whisper echoed through the trees, sending a chill through Daniel's spine. It was a voice he knew too well.
"Dad."
Daniel's breath hitched. It was Ethan. He broke into a run, crashing through the underbrush, the mist thickening around him. "Ethan? Ethan, where are you?" Lila's voice cut through the fog, sharp and urgent. "Daniel, wait." But it was too late. The ground beneath him vanished, and Daniel plummeted into the abyss. Daniel hit the ground hard, the air forced from his lungs. Darkness surrounded him, thick and suffocating. As his eyes adjusted, he realized he was in a cavern, the walls lined with strange, pulsating roots. A low, humming noise echoed around him, setting his teeth on edge. Then he saw them, rows of children, standing motionless, their eyes vacant and glowing faintly. Ethan was among them. Daniel's stomach churned. "Ethan." Ethan turned slowly, his expression blank. "Dad, you shouldn't be here." A deep, guttural voice rumbled through the cavern. "And yet here you are." Something ancient stirred in the darkness.